Hello everybody and welcome to Math with Miss Janke. Today we are working on 6.1 Day 2 equivalent ratios. And let's go over our first vocabulary word, equivalent ratios. These are ratios that name the same comparison, and you can find equivalent ratios by using multiplication and division. So let's start by looking at example 1. For example 1, we have the ratio 2 to 4. We need to find equivalent ratios. Just to review from yesterday, the two dots in between this ratio symbol means the word to, T-O. To do this, we could use multiplication. So I'm going to start with my given ratio, which was 2 to 4. Now I'm going to use some multiplication on each side of my ratio. So I'm going to start with a simple number. I can multiply by 2 and multiply by 2. Notice whatever I did to one side of my ratio, I'm doing to the other. So here I go. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. And then I'm just going to bring down my ratio symbol for the word 2. And my answer is 4 to 8. So I just found one equivalent ratio for 2 to 4. Let's see if we could do another equivalent ratio. I'm going to take what I just found, 4 to 8. And what if I multiply it by 2 on each side again? So on each side, I've multiplied by 2. 4 times 2 is 8. I'm bringing down my ratio symbol for the word 2, and 8 times 2 is 16. So I've just made another equivalent ratio, 8 to 16. Now I want to show you an example using division. I'm going to use my original ratio again this time, and that was 2 to 4. I am looking for a factor that goes into 2 and goes into 4, and hopefully we're recognizing that that factor is 2. So I could divide by 2 on each side. So I'm going to show a division bar like this. 2 divided by 2 gives me 1. 4 divided by 2 gives me 2. So I have my answer 1, 2, 2. So I could say, for my final answer, 2 to 4, that was my original ratio, is equivalent to 4 to 8, 8 to 16, and 1 to 2. Yes, there are many more that we could have came up with by continuing our multiplication, but we just decided to make 3 equivalent ratios here. Let's look at a word problem. This is example 2. We are going to look at drawing a table. You make 5 cups of punch by mixing 3 cups of cranberry juice with 2 cups of apple juice. Notice how I'm color coding here. How much cranberry juice would you need to make 4 times the recipe? So let's look at drawing a table. I'm going to draw my table to show cranberry juice and apple juice. And I'm going to stick to my color coding that I used, my blue for my cranberry and my green for my apple. And I'm going to make 4 boxes on my table because I need to go 4 times my recipe. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to start with my original amounts in my first box. I had 3 cups of cranberry juice, and I had 2 cups of apple juice. Now when I did that, I'm showing in my head what happened. I did 3 times 1 to get 3, and I did 2 times 1 to get 2. Now in the next box, I'm going to do 3 times 2. this would be as if I'm doubling the recipe. And 2 times 2. Let's fill it in. 3 times 2 is 6. 2 times 2 is 4. Now in my next box, I'm going to show 3, my original amount, times 3, because I'm in my third box. And down here, I'm going to show my original amount, 2 times 3. 3 times 3 gives me 9. 2 times 3 gives me 6. Let's go to our last box, our fourth box, and this is going to show us 4 times our recipe. I'm going to take my original amount again and multiply it by 4. Same thing on the bottom, 2 times 4. 3 times 4 is 12. 4 times 2 is 8. So I've created my chart so that I can just look here, right at my fourth box. So I could say we need 12 cups of cranberry and 8 cups of apple. I want you to notice that I made 4 spaces in the table because I was doing 4 times the recipe. It's also a good idea to note that here in the first box, we used our original, our given amount from the problem, and that's where our color coding really came in there. So our final answer again, we need 12 cups of cranberry juice and 8 cups of apple juice. Therefore, our ratio of cranberry to apple is 12 to 8. Next, we're going to look at method number 2, which is multiplication. Alrighty, so this is the multiplication method. We're still going to use our same problem dealing with cranberry and apple, okay? So let's take a look at our cranberry and apple from our previous chart. Now we know that our original ratio, we had cranberry to apple, and it's always beneficial to write that down in word form because we need to make sure that we have our numbers lined up. Remember, we had 3 cups cranberry juice and we had 2 cups of apple juice. So my cranberry juice cups are underneath the word cranberry, and same thing for apple. My 2 is underneath the word apple. Okay, so I need to make 4 times the recipe. So what I'm going to do is I could just take my 4 and I multiply each side of my ratio by 4. Now I need to bring down my 2, my ratio symbol. Now I can go 3 times 4 is 12, and 2 times 4 is 8. So there I could show that I had my ratio 12 to 8. I did 4 times the recipe. So let's write out what we did there. Now, if you wanted to do this in fraction form, you could have done it in fraction form. Remember, we can write ratios in many different ways. So we could have gone 3 over 2, then multiplied by 4, multiplied by 4. My numerator, 3 times 4 is 12. My denominator, 2 times 4 is 8. And then I write that in ratio form, 12 to 8. Now in ratios, it's okay to be an improper fraction, a fraction greater than 1. Let's look at another way to find equivalent ratios using multiplication. This time we're going to find an equivalent ratio for the fraction 8 over 10. Okay, so this time we have our fraction 8 over 10. We can take that and we can do it in fraction form where we go 8 over 10, multiply our numerator times 2, multiply our denominator times 2. 8 times 2 is 16, 10 times 2 is 20, giving us the ratio 16 to 20. Now, if you wanted to turn that into a ratio right away, we would take our 8 over 10. Remember, the top number, my numerator, comes first in my ratio. Now I have 8 to 10, and I could have lined up times 2, brought down my ratio symbol. 8 times 2 is 16, 10 times 2 is 20, again 16 to 20. Now what if I took 8 over 10 and I divided by a common factor? Okay, we can see, well, I could pull out a 2 here from each side. So I'm going to do my division bar and pull out a 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So another equivalent ratio would be 4 to 5. Looking at 4 to 5, we can't reduce that any further. It doesn't have any common factors, 4 and 5. So we could say that we just found 3 equivalent ratios here. 8 over 10 is equivalent to 8 to 10 in ratio form, 4 to 5, and 16 to 20. They all mean the same ratio. They are equivalent. All right, that was our multiplication method. Thank you for watching Module 6.1, Day 2 of Ratios.